Colorado moved to remove Donald Trump from the ballot, as has Maine. The Supreme Court will hear that case, and according to this headline, the court says it will decide if Trump qualifies for Colorado ballots. The Supreme Court said Friday that it will decide whether former President Donald Trump's name can appear on primary election ballots, scheduling arguments just 5 weeks from now in a case that will have a major impact on this year's presidential election. Colorado's top court disqualified the Republican frontrunner from the ballot last month, finding that he engaged in an insurrection before and during the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol. Similar arguments have been made to keep Trump off the ballot in other states. While some of those challenges have failed, including in Michigan and Minnesota, the efforts are still pending in Illinois, Oregon, Massachusetts, and elsewhere. Maine's top election official last month barred Trump from the ballot, an order that the former president has appealed in state court. Friday's announcement puts the justices in a pivotal and potentially uncomfortable position, with echoes of the court's involvement in the 2000 election. When its decision assured victory for George W. Bush, meaning in 2000, polarized the nation and damaged the court's reputation as an independent institution. The court's brief order scheduled oral arguments for February 8th and came a day before the third anniversary of the Capitol riot. Legal scholars and state election officials have urged the court to quickly settle the question of Trump's eligibility as a candidate and to ensure all states follow the same policy ahead of this year's primary voting. Trump holds a wide lead over other Republican contenders, with the Iowa caucuses less than 2 weeks away and state primaries starting January 23rd. So, key sentence here to focus in on is that what the recommendation is, and from the title of this article seems the Supreme Court will follow through on, the recommendation is that the Supreme Court actually rule on whether or not Trump qualifies to be on the Colorado ballot or whether he should be off of the Colorado ballot. The fear in many people's eyes is that the Supreme Court would punt the issue back to the states and say it's up to each individual state to interpret the 14th Amendment as they see fit, which would cause complete chaos because then some states would be free to bar him, some wouldn't. If SCOTUS rules that the Colorado court got it wrong and that Trump is eligible and therefore must be included on the Colorado state ballot, that puts this whole question of where's he going to be on, where is he going to be kicked off, that puts that to bed. That's obviously the best outcome for Donald Trump. And even though I'm not personally planning on voting for Donald Trump, I think that's far and away the best outcome for the country, because as one of the slides here says as well, this is a potentially dangerous situation if the court intervenes to either kick it back to the states, or even worse, what if they rule he is ineligible for the Colorado ballots? That opens the door to disqualify him entirely. So I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say they rule in Trump's favor and keep him on and put this issue to bed, because I think the social cost of doing the opposite is just too big. And without saying too much in East Berlin, there's no telling what happens if and when the Supreme Court decides he's not eligible to run again. You're talking about a level of social instability that makes January 6th look like, well, kind of like what it was, but, makes January 6th look like a walk in the park. That'll make January 6th look like a bunch of people walking around a public building. Yes.
Yeah, we'll be getting into that more on the Jimmy Dore show tomorrow, with one of the Capitol Police is running for Congress now, and somebody gave him a lot of money for that fucking ad. That's all I'm going to say until we get to it tomorrow. I think it could go either way. I really do. This is the court that struck down Roe v. Wade, so it's not a court that's terribly concerned with the social consequences of its decisions.
Totally fair point.
So how do they rule on the law of this? Do they decide that it's beyond their purview to make a judgment about whether what he did constituted insurrection, which is really what they would have to decide to uphold Colorado's decision?
And that's, of course, a tough case to make because he was not charged with the crime of insurrection. Even Jack Smith decided not to charge him with that. So it would be a major leap for them to go ahead and say, yes, this is a valid interpretation of the 14th Amendment. Yes, he's guilty of insurrection, which means, yes, he's disqualified.
I would go even further than that. I would say if they make that jump, that is evidence that they work for people like everybody else in Washington, because I don't feel like you can legally get there. If they make that kind of a jump, I'd say they were told to. That would be the conclusion I would draw if they do that.
Yeah. And then what happens as a result of that? I mean, how far can you stretch this rubber band, right? I mean, at a certain point, you reach a point of no return. Obviously, that we don't want that, but part of the reason why I would strongly advise Justice Roberts, if you're listening, to consider the cost.
Well, he's a $10 a month patron, isn't he?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's part of what's the guy's name? What's the guy? Jim Crow, or not Jim Crow? Harlan Crow. Jim Crow. Yeah.
Our biggest donor, Jim Crow.
Yeah, Harlan Crow. Harlan Crow. That's part of Harlan Crow's gift package to the Supreme Court justices. He gets them all Patreon memberships to our show.
They never miss an episode. So guys, don't mess this one up. It's going to be civil war.
Yeah. And courts are supposed to be prudent in that way. Like part of the point of three separate but co-equal branches that have a check on the other two. Part of the design of that is for courts to step in and prevent tyranny of the majority. Tyranny of the majority often leads to injustice or instability. So it is actually part of the court's function to actually act with some level of prudence and concern for the stability and social fabric of the country. That's part of the job. It's not a part of the job this Supreme Court takes terribly seriously. Otherwise, they would not have overturned Roe v. Wade. And it's for the reasons I'm talking about that actually Justice Roberts is documented as having lobbied very hard for the conservative justices to uphold Roe versus Wade. He failed to do that.
Right.
But for that reason, I'm betting they're going to keep Trump on the ballot.
I would say it probably leans that way, but don't be surprised to be surprised. I think yes, but nobody thought they would strike down Roe v. Wade either until like the leak came,
right?
Because of the amount of social instability you create, because of the kind of backlash you create. They have not set a precedent of ruling that way. What is interesting is you're getting so many Democrats like Gavin Newsom, who, if that guy was born with a soul, he got rid of it at a crossroads a long time ago. And even he's saying, yeah, no, you got to beat him at the ballot box. Like there are a fair amount of Democrats who are recognizing what the danger of taking him off the ballot is. And it's very interesting that they're saying that, because I can't imagine anyone thinks he would lose.
Because, look, man, I mean, the kind of chaos that you're talking about were he to be thrown off the ballot is something that no one wants. Even the shit libs don't want that, right? The secure in their position PMC libs, yeah, I mean, they want Trump to lose. They want Biden to win. They hate Trump. But life under Trump was not that bad. They still get to drink the white wine and watch Rachel Maddow rant about what a disgrace Trump is, right? They still have their house. They still have the supermarket open. They still have the bank open. You don't have chaos. You don't have social chaos, the likes of which we would likely see if they did something like that, because Trump is the front runner, not just for the nomination. He is the front runner for the fucking presidency. He would be elected president if the election were held right now. So to make a move as drastic as to just rule him as unqualified or disqualified from running, that's a major move. You are crossing a point of no return. And I don't think
you don't feel that Biden Valley Forge speech moved the needle towards Biden? You don't think in the next round of polling he's going to have overtaken Trump?
I do not.
Please clap.